Welcome to the 8 Billion Project, where we're on a mission to make an impact by discovering and sharing the purpose of every person on this planet. I'm your host, Liza, Florida. Enjoy today's episode. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 8 Billion Podcast. I am your host, Liza, Florida. And today I've got a very special guest. There are times in your life when an introduction seems like divine alignment. And after having a few conversations with this guest, I definitely knew that I had to bring him on here to share his story. So without further ado, I'd like to present my guest. Ben Yeh is a business and transformational coach. Ben's career has evolved from being a real estate consultant, investment officer for a family office where he invested over $1 billion, a serial entrepreneur, husband, father, advisor, coach, and overall student of life. Combining his investment experience, business coaching, and spiritual journey, Ben empowers heart-centered entrepreneurs on how to gain clarity in their purpose, their true north, and live an enriching life physically, mentally, and spiritually. Ben launched his Boom Vision podcast in 2021, a show all about health, wealth, and higher self. This show dives deep on how to create a fulfilling, abundant life, and it starts with a powerful mindset. Welcome, Ben Yeh, to the 8 Billion Podcast. Thank you so much. It is an honor to have you on here.
Liza, I'm very grateful that I'm here today. So I thank you so much for inviting me on your show. I'm so excited for this conversation.
I know, me too. This was one audience where I was just like, after several conversations with Ben, everything just made sense. And there are times, like, as many of you guys know, being my audience members, you'll know once I get this hit and download, I move with it. And that's some things that I've been sharing with you guys all throughout these last 2 to 3 years, right? You know when to move, like you're so connected to spirit that when it says go. And this is one of these podcasts that I had to record. So, I mean, I've shared your introduction, Ben, and you have absolutely, we even have alignment in real estate. So we can even, Ben and I have had conversations about real estate, but for this purpose of this messaging and podcast, Ben, I'd love for you to just start out with your story. I always ask my guests because I'm a storyteller.
Yeah,
so
me too.
if you could, give us a few minutes here and just at least tell us your story, so they have at least a basis of how you got here to this moment.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you. Thank you for creating a space for this. Right now, I would say I'm in the third chapter of my life. I was originally born in Taiwan, came over to the States when I was 3. But my first chapter of my career started as a real estate hospitality consultant. And what that really means is just I lived out of a suitcase for 4 years, right? Depending on where the project is, where the engagement is. Sometimes I get mixed up on which time zone I'm in. But it was the day before Christmas in 2008. Before that, the financial crisis hit. I remember getting called in particularly early for a meeting in the office. And at the time I was working in downtown LA. And I remember I was driving down to downtown and I was listening to the radio. I think I was listening to Kiss FM. And this new song came on called I Hate This Moment Right Now by the Pussycat Dolls. And I was like, oh, that's a catchy tone, right? But my intuition was telling me, wait, something's off. Something's about to happen, right? I think I'm getting laid off, right? And then sure enough, I go into the office, I'm getting laid off that day, the day before Christmas, which is, a whole host of emotions that, as you can imagine, that I was feeling. But, these, and you and I know this, when one door closes, usually another one opens if you're looking in the right area. You might not see it at the moment. Everything has a purpose, right? And so I had to pivot quite quickly to find a new opportunity. And I was very blessed. I was very blessed to have an opportunity to work for a family office. And so family office is just a fancy term for investment team. Usually it's for a high net worth individual or a family that have created wealth and now they wanted to preserve and grow that wealth. And so this family office I was working for happened to create their wealth in the restaurant industry. And so that was my second chapter of my career. I worked as a investment officer for this family, and basically all the income they generated in a restaurant, we used that money to invest on their behalf. So it was initially predominantly real estate because that was my background. As a consultant, I underwrote valuations for a hotel, for office buildings, for residential towers. So all different asset classes of real estate. And with that know-how, they were looking to acquire real estate. So it was a good fit. But also just given how much money they generated in a restaurant group, we started getting knocks on the door asking to invest in this startup, in this fund, in this PE fund, in everything non-real estate. And so through this course of the 7 years I was there, in that second chapter, I think you mentioned in that bio, we invested well over $1 billion for them. And I got to see almost practically everything under the sun. I got to see different stages of businesses, from paper idea to startup to private equity deals. It was such an eye-opening experience for me to see all of that and to experience that in all different stages. But what was fascinating for me, because back then I lived very much in the 3D world, right? I was very left brain, very logic based. But I have a lot to be thankful for, because at that company, I also met my wife. We got married. We had our first child. And it was during that maternity leave, in the first 2 weeks when my son was born, I was forced to turn off my BlackBerry. I wasn't getting any incoming emails, so I was really forced to unplug. And I remember laying in bed next to my wife. I was staring at the ceiling, and I had this vision come in. And at the time, we were still living in an apartment, but I had this vision of this house with a front yard. My wife and I were there. 2 kids were running around. Everyone seems happy. And I knew this was a vision of the future because we just had our first child and I was still living in our apartment. So it was, okay, this seems interesting. But what was baffling to me was that although everyone seemed happy in this vision, as I was watching this vision, I was feeling empty. My feeling internally was very disconnected with the vision that I was seeing. And I didn't understand why. Wait, aren't I doing what my soul's yearning for? If my intention in life is to work for a billionaire family as an investment officer, like, this is it. There's no better principles to work for. But why am I feeling empty? Why do I feel this disconnect? And that was my first awakening. When I really dug in deep, it was my first awakening and understanding, wow, I think the path that I'm on was designed by others. It was designed by society, by my parents, by external factors. It wasn't the path that my soul wanted to be on. And when I had that awareness, it's like, Liza, what do I do with that? What? Right? What do I do with this? How do I get out of it? Right? I don't know. I didn't have the tools or understanding to comprehend, to digest, and to process when I had that vision. And so it wasn't until a few years later, after having that vision, where I finally took that leap of faith. I was like, okay, I know my heart wants to have the fulfillment. The path that I was on in the investment world, it was just ones and zeros. I didn't understand at the time that money was just energy. I didn't understand and comprehend that yet. And that's when I embarked on my third chapter of my career, which I'm in right now, where I left the position and I tried to do it as much gracefully as I can. Instead of a 6 weeks notice, it would turn out to be a 6-month notice, because I wanted to make sure the transition was smooth so that I have the right team in place in terms of the responsibilities I had before. But I just knew in my heart that my soul wanted to do something that was more meaningful than in the current default future that was staying in that position. And so it felt like I was jumping out of the airplane and I'm going to figure out how to make a parachute on the way down, right? I don't necessarily recommend it being that abrupt, but I just knew I needed this space. I needed a space for myself to figure things out. And in this third chapter of being an entrepreneur, working with different partners, it's funny how life events, whenever there's a new birth, a death, or whatever it may be, it's always life events that gives you pause to think of what is it that you're currently prioritizing in life. Does that serve you? Right. Mm-hmm. And so the second event that happened for me was my uncle. That was my dear, he was sort of like that rock where if anything happens, I can always call on him without any judgment. And he's always going to help me and be that sounding board. My uncle, when he passed away, his 3 sons asked me to be the MC for the funeral. And this was right during the pandemic. So this was happening right around, I would say, in late 2020. And I remember, emotionally, it was a lot to take in that day. But after being an MC for the funeral and coming back that night, and I think it was like at 11:30 in the p.m. at night, I was doing an Excel spreadsheet pro forma for a real estate deal, right? Underwriting a deal. And then just finally hit me where I'm like, I'm so done with Excel. I know that's what I know how to do. And that's what I spent 2 decades on, but it just brings me no joy. So I need to pause from that. And so I remember telling a week later after that, talking to my partners at the time, saying, hey, I need to take a break from this and taking a step back from that partnership. But what is it that I want to do? What is it that will give me that fulfillment? And my wife, being as intuitive as she is, said, Ben, I see you most alive when you coach people. And she was right, because when I was an investment officer, when I have money invested in companies, I want you to succeed because I have money with you, right? So I've been working with the CEOs or executive teams and how to help them grow. But I always noticed that during those coaching moments, rather than only talking about KPIs and scorecards, right? KPI stands for key performance indicators, right? And talk about just the numbers. I always tend to have more of a holistic perspective. But my wife was right. Like I did feel most alive when I coach people, when I help them unlock things if they feel stuck. And when I think about, well, what kind of coaching do I want to do? My background was in business, but it's about that inner transformation. What I've learned through my own journey is your inner world and the inner world that you live in amplifies to your outer reality. What you're experiencing now in your outer world are all seeds that you planted in your inner world and continue to plant, and how you cultivate internally. So if your external world isn't matching what you envision as your dream, then what can you do in your inner world to expand that so that then the outer world can catch up and resonate with that? And it was fascinating because, like, okay, well, how do I do this? And looking back now, Liza, I feel like maybe it were downloads, but I was like, okay, I reflected back when I had that vision, when my son was born, and I felt stuck. I felt that disconnect. How do I speak to that younger version of myself where that would have given myself the tools to comprehend and digest that? And that's really where I came up with the Boom Vision podcast is, if your inner world is if your outer world is a direct reflection of your inner world, then how do you strengthen and build your inner world to be more conducive to what is it that you want to create? And what I got was, it's your imagination, it's your voice, it's your intuition. Your imagination is what you see internally. Your voice or inner voice is what you hear internally. Your intuition is what you feel internally. What you see, what you hear, what you feel completely creates your inner world that then gets amplified to your outer reality. So if you know how to strengthen those building blocks, what I call those core pillars, then you are on that path to then create what it's going to be in alignment with what it is that you want to learn and accomplish in life.
That's beautiful. It's interesting though, Ben, because we did a podcast swap, and here like I was saying, there's so much alignment in the way that our journeys have been, right? And it's just Ben and I have different ways of explaining it, but it's all the same thing. And that's what I absolutely really enjoyed when I first met Ben and we started getting into conversations. He was just like, he would reframe what I would say and explain it, or like give me an analogy or a metaphor. And I was like, that's exactly it. That's, and that's the beauty of all of this, because at the very core, we are all following all of that. I mean, once we know, many of us, and we've been circulating through this spiritual journey of ours, we're hearing it on so many just different ways that are explained by and defined through each experience.
Yeah. What I mentioned earlier is that we're all in the same swimming pool, just in a different lane. And sometimes someone might be saying something very similar, but just the way they say it, how it lands on them, something might help them unlock. And you won't know until you just hear different perspective. You have that curiosity. It's that Walt Whitman quote, right? Be curious, not judgmental. If you come from a place of curiosity and not from a place of judgment, we don't know what we don't know. And that's the rest of the universe. And when you can come at it with an open mind, wow, a lot of things start opening up that you just don't know.
You just don't know. Well, let me ask you this, Ben. From the time that you ended up having that vision when your child was born, and you said like it ended up becoming 2 more years that you stayed in your, what was that? You call it the part 2 of your journey.
Second chapter.
Second chapter.
Mm-hmm.
In that 2-year time frame, most people that I would say are going down like they're going through their spiritual awakening, and they've got quite the story. You know what I mean? Like, including my own, I've got quite the story where I was all over the place and all that kind of stuff. But it seems that, as you're going through this awakening process, if that's what you define it as, looking back, what those 2 years were, like, what were some of those moments that you would say, like, did it feel like a roller coaster for you? Or was it just did it seem very calm, and like you just arrived at that place 2 years later and you're like, this doesn't really call to my soul anymore? What was this 2 years like in between?
Great question. Okay. So it's almost like a little flashback here. It was definitely a roller coaster of emotions. And the way I would describe it, it's almost like this. We talked about recalibration earlier, right? Mm-hmm. When you realize a new language, like I didn't realize how much of an empath I was until I leaned in on it to seek to understand what is the signals why do I have these feelings? What is it that I'm feeling? Is it even mine? Right. I'll give you a quick side story. When my wife was first pregnant, have you gone through this where, how sometimes when the mother is pregnant, their senses might be a bit heightened, like, either their sense of smell or like, sensory somehow is like sort of amplified. What they don't tell you is sometimes it happens to the husbands too. Right. So what was very odd is when my wife was pregnant with our first child, with our son, for some reason, I didn't realize I was an empath, but it got amplified like 10x. And so an example is, when I was at the time, I was still sitting out in the cubicles, and there was one day where I just had this intense headache. I was like, what is this? And it was very specific. It was pressure in the right temple, and it was this jabbing needle feeling in the back of my left head. It was a very specific headache that was painful, but very odd. I was like, why do I feel this? And I remember getting up from my desk, walking to the restroom, but once I got out of the immediate area of where my desk was, went away. What? What the heck? And so I went to the restroom, I came back, and right when I came back into around my desk about to sit down, I had headache back again. And it was this pressure in my right temple. I'm like, what's going on? So I look over, and one of my coworkers, who usually is very talkative, was a bit quiet that day, right? So I looked over and I was like, Janet, are you feeling this? And I was describing the headache, and she just looks over at me and she's like, wait, how do you know? I was like, Janet, you need to get out. I'm picking up whatever it is that you're feeling. Are you okay driving home? And if you are, can you please leave? Because I don't even know how you're operating if you're feeling this headache. And we're about 7-8 feet apart, right? But something about her energy field, I was just picking up. And that's one of several stories I felt during my wife when she was pregnant, right? Like another story is, sometimes you have more motion sickness for some mothers that are, that are pregnant. And there was a time where we're driving across town for this dinner, but she was feeling sharp pains in her stomach. And I remember my wife was sitting next to me, and I gently touched her forearm, saying, honey, are you okay? But right when I touched her, ow! Like I felt this pain on my stomach on the left side. So I felt what she was feeling. I was like, oh my God, this is a 20-minute drive through traffic. Are you going to be okay with this? She's like, just drive slow and not to have stop and go. But I had to immediately let go of the hand because I was like, okay, I'm just way too sensitive. I didn't know this before. I don't know why. I still don't know why, but it was just something about during that time of pregnancy, my senses also got heightened. But that was just a glimpse. That was a glimpse of, wow, I could feel this energy. But before, I would just immediately dismiss it. And the best way to describe it to you, Liza, it's like, if you're driving like a Tesla, if you're driving where you have this dashboard and your entire life, all you know is driving forward and back and the speedometer and how much fuel or battery, power you have left. You only know certain functions of your dashboard. You never knew there's an in-baked GPS system, right? You never knew there's other function. And sometimes if there's a light flashing on where you have to change your oil, or you don't even know what the light flashing is, you just dismiss it. It's nothing, right? That's the thing where before, if my intuition was trying to communicate with me, this is different for everyone. Everyone has it, but it's different for everyone. Sometimes people will get visions. Sometimes people will hear things. Sometimes people will feel things in their body. There's different signals to it, but until you spend the time to acknowledge and try to understand what it means, you'll continue dismissing that red blinking light. And I was at a point where, because my wife and I had a theta healing, we started getting Reiki sessions. We started understanding this world of energy. Oh, those are all signals. I just have to interpret it and understand what is it that is trying to tell me. And once I started understanding that world, then I started understanding this belief, this new belief that it's not seeing as believing. It's believing as seeing. It's not seeing as believing. As a logic mind, very 100% left brain, very 100% logic. Show me the data and evidence and I'll believe it. It's very much a seeing as believing world. That was my paradigm. That was my belief. But once I understood a better understanding of energy, it's believing as seeing.
It is.
And the thing is that statement, once you start to understand it, it can be scary because it's almost that interpretation that, wow, if I really change my perspective that believing is seeing, then it's like a giant leap of faith. I don't know where I'm jumping into, but I just got to jump it. But it's scary, right?
Yeah.
And what I try to do for myself, and that's what I do with my coaching and my podcast is, well, at first, it does feel like it's a giant leap of faith. But with different perspectives and with the right tools, maybe it's a jump of faith. If it's a jump of faith, it doesn't seem as scary, right? What is fear, right? You might have this fear and you want to acknowledge it, but what is fear? Fear is false evidence appearing real. Yeah. FEAR. Doesn't mean it's not there, but it's very real for you. But it's false evidence appearing real. And if I can help you change the lens of how you're seeing your circumstances, where instead of a leap of faith, it's a jump of faith. And the more we talk it out, the more we get to the root cause, maybe it's just a step of faith. Oh, well, it's just a step. I can take that step.
Correct.
Right. Then that transformation starts to happen easier. It's not going to be easy, but easier because it doesn't seem as scary. Does that answer your question, Liza?
Oh, it answers my question. It even answered my next question, right? But I'm still going to ask that. And it's interesting, though, Ben, that you shared. And this is, audience, this is exactly why I wanted to bring Ben in here, because of the way that he shares his stories and his moments and explains things. I was just like, that's exactly what it is. Like, I had moments like that, right? Like when I even shared with you, it was turning on the camera for the first time with the live stream. And I was going to tell you too, Ben, I was just like, yeah, I mean, maybe they were bots. Maybe there wasn't even one person watching, but I just knew, right? Like I was transcending, or I was getting rid of a fear. I was just taking one step. And that's all it takes. It's just that one tiny step, and that, that believing, right? And here's another thing that I wanted to say. Everyone was always, growing up, they're always saying, you can manifest anything you want. You just have to believe, right? So I was just like, yes, earlier I was like, I believe. But what a lot of people don't understand is they think that they believe. So imagine when I say you think you believe, you've got to feel that you believe. And so I even talked about that, right, Ben, in our other podcast, was that I shared this with a friend recently. The bigger secret to what everyone thinks is the secret, which is energy, frequency, vibration. Everyone manifests from the logical mind. It's really, at least for myself and my experience in the last 3 years, is when I dropped it down to my heart. And even if I could not see a foot in front of me, and I just believe that something out there would either catch me or something would appear, that's when I was moving through these big, moments of transcendental space where I was just creating and creating and creating a new reality over and over again.
Yeah.
So,
and I want to touch on that because, if we're talking about manifestation, if energy is flowing towards there, we're probably going to be in this for a couple hours. The thing about manifestation, and you hit the nail on the head, it's the feeling part. But the way to break it down to simple steps is, people usually get the first step right, which is you have to see it. You have to visualize it. What is it that you want to create? What is it that you want to manifest? You have to be able to tangibly see it using your imagination. See what is it that you want to manifest. Now, where people might trip up is once they see and hold that image in their mind, okay, got it. Now they're just going to start doing. They skip the step of feeling. And the way I describe it, to make it more tangible, it's like this. Let's say you want to go cross country somewhere, you want to go to a destination, and you pull up your GPS system, right? Whether you're using a Waze app, whether you're using Google Maps, whatever it is, and you punch in the coordinates of where is you want to go, that destination. And usually what happens when you put in the address is the pin drop comes up and it'll show you where that is, right? So visualization is seeing where that is. And then once you see the pin drop, you're like, okay, got it. And you start driving. Wait, hold up. You didn't actually push the button of direction. You just only visualize where it is. The act of feeling through, if you already have it, if you're already there, how does it feel? It's no different than then you're pushing the direction button, telling your soul, telling your higher self, now take me there. Because how you communicate within is through feeling. And so I want to just give that explanation, because sometimes it's like, why do I need to feel through it? It's like, well, because you got to push the button. You got to push that direction. And then once you push it, then you let go of that attachment. Don't hold on. Okay, let the universe do its thing. Mm-hmm. Then you start taking action and it'll guide you there. But without feeling it, you miss that step of actually pushing directions. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Fully. This is what I really enjoy these conversations with Ben. And that's why I really want to share his work and his story with you guys, the audience. Now, Ben, take me through this part right now. Fast forward 2 year, what is this? 2020, you were the host of your uncle's reception, for his funeral. And then you go back into the office, you're doing, Excel sheets, and you're like, I'm done with this. Is that actually when you decided to go back in and put in your 6 months and let them know that you were going to?
Yeah, no. So when I put in my 6 months, that was probably back in 2015, 16.
Oh.
So that was a while back. It was during this third chapter of having different partnerships. So what was interesting, how my coaching evolved, Liza, was at the time, still living in the left brain, still living in the logic base, right? I was thinking, okay, what is my know-how and experience? My entire career up until that point was in the investment world, was in real estate world. And also similar to you, my wife and I both did a lot of personal development. We took landmark education. We did Tony Robbins, right? We have all these energy healing. So it's an exploration and journey within oneself, right?
Correct.
And at the time, I had this idea of, well, what if I take both worlds of what Tony Robbins says about mindset and the investment world of like Warren Buffett? Originally, I was going to go down that path of coaching, which is in a holistic perspective of investing.
Mm-hmm.
Created a website, created 10 blog posts. I was about to publish until I got a call from a friend that was an advisor to a startup, a real estate startup, saying, Ben, one of the co-founders is looking for a CEO. I think you guys would hit it off. Will you just take this lunch meeting and just meet him? Okay, all right. Why don't I meet with them tomorrow? I didn't publish that website yet. And I took that meeting. We immediately hit it off. It's almost like, meeting your lost brother from another mother, right? Like we just energetically, we vibed. And he was very persuasive in asking me to be a CEO of this real estate startup. And I had all the experiences to be able to do so. And so I had squirrel syndrome. I got pulled away into this different path, right? Into this different timeline. So I did that for a year. And so I never published that coaching website, but I was on a different path. I veered different to being this real estate startup. And after doing it for a year, I got to the point where, wait, I'm not feeling any joy in this. Like this is not my calling. What am I doing? The whole point of this third chapter is to figure that out. And I knew this wasn't it. Crap, what do I do? So I had to talk to my partners, like, guys, I have to, this isn't it. And then, once I was released from that space, people hear Ben's available, all right? And people know me as the real estate, right? Investment. So I would get these inbounds. But then, through a different partnership, but after my uncle's funeral, I was like, wait, I'm not really listening into my soul. I'm letting the externalities tell me what my options are. I'm not paving the path that my soul wants to create. That's when, fast forward now to late 2020, where, okay, I got to go within. I got to really start going within. And when my wife kindly reminded me, yeah, your soul is most alive when you coach people. Honey, you're right. Okay. So, but then I looked back at that website that I was going to publish. That energy and vibration was not the same where I was at. And at that point, it felt like an older version. It felt like 2.0 version, not the 3.0 version.
I was going to say
right?
2.0.
Yeah. And so I had to scrap like 60% of that. Wait, that's not me anymore. What is me? And that's when the idea of the podcast came out. Wait, how do I give the tools that will allow me to comprehend, to digest, to process, how to be in more alignment? And then that's when the words imagination, voice, intuition came up. What does that mean? All right, let me do some research. Let me go down that rabbit hole, opening up to the world of Dr. Bruce Lipton, opening the world of Dr. Joe Dispenza, what is this world, right? And because I want to do this topic justice. And I remember recording the first episode, and I was replaying the first episode of my recording. And I listened to my voice, and I was like, that's how my voice sounds like? What? There's no way in hell someone's want to listen to my voice, right? So I literally shut it down, Liza. I stopped for 5 months. I was like, no one wanted to listen to me. Forget that. So I stopped.
Mm-hmm.
And then and this was beginning of what? I forgot my timeline right now, but maybe it was So I stopped for 5 months, and then my wife, because she was going through her journey, she was taking this nutrition class, and one of the quotes that her instructor told her that she felt I was compelled to hear was, "When you're nervous, focus on service. When you're nervous, focus on service." Did you hear the same thing too, or?
Yes, and I was wondering if I was going to say that I had mentioned that in your podcast, but I don't think that I did.
Yeah.
I remember, at least in one of my very first live streams, that I would have these nerves going on, and one day, like it had dawned on me. I said, I'm not doing this for me anymore.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
I'm doing this for others.
That's right. And when she told me that, it was my aha moment where, wow, me making my own voice cringe because I wasn't used to my own voice makes it about me. And that's not my intention for this podcast. It's about serving others. And when I realized that and had that breakthrough, that same weekend, I recorded episode 2 and 3. And I was like, all right, within a month, I'm going to release. And I stuck to it. Right. And that's when I released my show in, I think it was like September of 2021. But it took me a while to really get there. But that was a process I needed to go through to get there.
Yeah, it's incredible, right? Because I was going to ask you, in a lot of my podcasts, I always talk about the healing journey. And in most of my podcasts, most especially in season 5, the healing journey, I mean, majority of that season is women. And so we talk about it so deeply. Like, I wanted to ask you, do you feel like, if you look back, could you define that I mean, if you look back in your life and on that journey, would you say there was like a healing journey, or were there just moments like epiphanies that would dawn on you? Like, and I mean, I'm sorry, I'm all like, maybe I should finish with that, or I could elaborate a little bit more.
I get what you're saying. And I would say, yes, part of the healing, it's interesting. Healing is, that's like another hour conversation we can have too with that. The interesting thing, Liza, about healing is it depends on the purpose of what you're healing for.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about a wound you might have on your hand, part of the healing is it'll scab over, right? It might leave a mark, might not, but there's a healing process in order to heal the wound. There's another reason for healing, which is very integral in building strength. If you think about building muscle, how do you build muscle? Is that you push your limits, whatever your limitations are at that point physically. You want to go one step above that to create micro tears. Because then with those micro tears of your muscles, then with the healing process of it, that's how you build muscle. Right? And why I'm making that distinction is sometimes you need to heal because you have past wounds that was unaddressed. But sometimes you can accelerate that process when you know what you're healing for. Mm-hmm. If I have a destination I want to go towards, and it's going to be a process to go there, then you don't think about building strength as healing, right? It doesn't really, that name doesn't come up. But if you really think about how the muscle is being built, it's a very integral part of it. And so that's where knowing what your true north is, or having a general sense of it, will be helpful, right? I mean, we live in this day and age of the terms hustle and grind. And I have a love-hate relationship with that word, because when I think about that word and that vibration of those words, it feels like you're in a hamster wheel and you just have to grind it out and you just have to keep doing it, right? But if you don't pop your head up to even see if are you even going in the right direction, then you're going to be caught up in that cycle where 10 years down the road, it's like, wait, I was meant to go west and I've been heading southeast this whole time. I'm at a point in my life, Liza, now where it's like, I'd rather go one step in the right direction than 10 miles in the wrong direction.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But how? But the question is how, right? You got to be able to start exercising your intuition. You got to be able to align what you see, what you hear, what you feel internally. Because when you're in that alignment, it's this magical place where it's like, wait, I always felt like I always had these random roadblocks coming in my life. How come things are now starting to flow into my life where that wasn't like this before? Well, it's because you're starting to listen into your intuition more often.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's interesting that you say that though, Ben, because what I'm noticing is like, yeah, sometimes you could have a fear. And honestly, there were a lot of things that I had to transcend I moved through as I was birthing, of course, now the community platform, going from a podcast, now talking about a community platform that I will, facilitate live. There's a lot of things like, could I do it and all this kind of stuff? Is it the right vision? I see so many people doing this and that. And and this kind of like different. One of the things that like kind of when you were talking about that, like I'd rather go one step in the right direction instead of 10 miles. What's interesting about that and what I'm starting to see is that as there's so much transformation happening right now amongst so many individuals, and all of us are like, most especially us that are in this, we're just holding this greatest space without any judgments of what people do. People will find that they don't have to go far. They don't have to go 10 miles in before they're saying like, okay, this is not right. Let me just pivot. And it's okay, because it's your ability to say, it's okay to pivot. It's okay to fully admit, like, I might have gone in the wrong direction, or like what you were saying, a whole year later, that whole vision that you had and sharing, like the whole thing before your part where you were the executive or where you became the CEO?
Investment officer.
Sorry about that. You're saying that when you return back to it a year later, it's just like, it's not, it's not like me anymore. There's a different version of that. Yeah. And that's what we are all doing, is we're in constant evolution of transformation, and we're ascending to these higher versions of ourselves. So
and what comes to me as I'm listening to you, Liza, is that depending on everyone's situation, everyone has different circumstances, and I recognize that, right? Because of the environment you're in, because of the culture you have, because of the of your inner circle, your family members, whatever it may be, sometimes you might be getting programs where, like life's about growing, going faster. So, you have to run a marathon. You have to run a marathon. You have to always sprint, right? But if you give yourself those moments of pause, to be able to have clarity come through to you, sometimes it might be like, maybe I'm not meant to sprint. Maybe I'm meant to be a long distance runner, which is more about consistency.
Yeah. Or
another way to look at it is, I've been fed this concept of always upgrading the car from Camry to Ferrari, right? Tomorrow, going faster, horsepower. But is it really driving? Or are you meant to run? Or are you meant to fly? There's a lot of different ways to get to where your destination is. There's a lot of different ways and speed in getting to it. Yeah. Just because it worked right for one way doesn't mean that's the right way for you. You just have to resonate with it. You have to be in line with it. And when you're in alignment, somehow things will not be as difficult. But you got to be able to tune in to understand that and be authentically aware of who you are. And it's okay, right? Knowing what's yours and what doesn't. So Yeah, I mean, that's when I coach, I listen to the words people use and I can sense the energy behind it. And it gives me a glimpse of, metaphorically speaking, it's like, if you're telling me your vision in life is to run the Boston Marathon, but you're using 5K level language, well, there's a gap. Okay. Why is that? What's the root causes of that? Right? What's anchoring you down on a 5K level, right? How do you sort of slowly upgrade that to 10K, to half marathon, then ultimately to that marathon? It takes steps. It takes consistency. It takes space and grace to give yourself that room for growth.
Yes, absolutely. Another great way of sharing the message. Let's go into Boom Vision now. I know the story of why you named it Boom Vision, but would you share it with the audience? And of course, tell us a little bit more about the pillars.
So, wow. Okay. So Boom Vision, I knew I wanted to talk about mind, body, and soul in a way that I would be able to comprehend. Now, when people think of mind, body, and soul, conventionally, I think the first word association that usually comes up is yoga, right? And I love yoga, right? My wife used to be a yoga instructor. So it's not a knock on yoga, but that's one way to integrate mind, body, and soul, but it's not the only way. And when I really dug in deep on, well, how do you have more of a balance and strengthen your mind, body, and soul, having alignment? Okay, it starts with the mind. And when I had that download of imagination, voice, intuition, I was like, okay, these words are very important to me because that's the basis and foundation of what I want to share on my show. And I'm a big movie guy. I love movies. And so one of my favorite movies, my top 10 favorite movies of all time, is this movie called Sneakers. I'm not sure if you've ever seen that movie or not, Liza, but it was the same director as Field of Dreams. So if you've ever seen that movie,
yes,
back in the days, it was about 2 years later, I think, that that same director then released this movie Sneakers. It had Robert Redford, Dan Aykroyd, Sidney Poitier, River Phoenix. It had a really great cast. And without ruining the story of that movie, in the middle of the movie, they were celebrating about retrieving this object. And in part of the celebration, they were playing Scrabble. And what they were doing, and when we were playing Scrabble, was they came to realize that the words of what that object meant, if you scrabble the letters, actually means completely something different, which is the true essence of what that object is meant for.
Yeah.
And that scene always stuck with me. So I was like, all right, I love to play with words. So what is the words that means a lot to me? It's mind, body, and soul. But the mind is really imagination, voice, intuition. So if I take those 5 words, imagination, voice, intuition, body, and soul, if I take the first 2 letters of those 5 words and I scrabble it, you get either vision boom or you get boom vision. And I remember I was in my office when I came to that realization. I was like, oh, I said it out loud. I was like, is it vision boom or is it boom vision? And right when I said that, like I have windows right across from my office. A bird smacked right into my windows. We're like, boom. I was like, whoa, what? And there was still feathers stuck to the window. I took a picture of it because I was like, no one's going to believe me unless I take a picture of this. I think it was a pigeon that flew in, but luckily it was okay, right? It flew away. But then I looked up and I just told the universe, okay, I hear you loud and clear. It's boom vision. Got it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of that's how I realized, words have energy, and I wanted my title to be meaningful. And that's how I came up with Boom Vision. And so I get what you went through too, Liza, when you first started your live channel. It's like, why am I doing this? Okay, just gotta believing the scene. So I just gotta believe it. And I started publishing these episodes. I was like, okay, you know what? I should invite other people that can share their stories and experts in their fields, because it's all about perspective. That's all it's about. It's just perspective.
It is absolutely about perspective.
And my show, the way to easily sum it up is it's health, it's wealth, it's higher self. It's if you have that burning desire to live an enriching life, physically, mentally, spiritually, it's all interconnected. You and I know that. But how do we help people understand that? Then how do I share things that I share when I coach clients, but also listen to people's perspective in helping people understand and start that journey for themselves, right? Like we mentioned this earlier when we recorded for my show, but it's funny how, when my son in our latest parent-teacher conference, it's like you're teaching the kids how to read so that they can read to learn. You learn to read, then read to learn. And when I think about meditation, when I think about this spiritual journey, it's like you're learning how to meditate so that you can meditate how to truly learn about yourself. And that's what we're both doing with our respective shows. Our why we bring more light into this subject matter is how do you learn how to then meditate and go within, so that when you go within, you can really then start learning more about yourself. A whole new world will then open up.
It's absolutely amazing. One of the things though, Ben, let me ask you this.
Yes.
You've seen every type of business underneath the sun, and you've been fortunate and blessed truly to see so many things. And even outside of our conversation in this podcast, you've talked about it.
Yeah.
Now that you have Boom Vision and you can create from a blank slate, and you are in essence creating, let me ask you, what is the expanded vision of Boom Vision?
Ooh, that's a good question. Ooh, okay, let me see.
Or we're going to create right here. We're going to create right here.
Yeah. It's okay. So I'm feeling the vibe. So I think this is where
you're buzzing.
Coming through. I'm buzzing. That's my intuition telling me we're on the right path here.
Coming through.
Yeah. The core essence of it, Liza, is when we can live in a world where, as much as we use the word logic, in the same sentence, we could use the word energy. I firmly believe this world will be in a better place. Because if we can understand the essence of energy, that everything's energy, money's energy, we're all energy, we're all interconnected. But how? Before that statement would just go above my head. I understand how. But why I share the principles, but why I give that perspective is the best way I could describe it is like this. I used to, back when I was an undergrad, my first year was actually a programmer, right? I was going to be a programmer. I was studying to be a science major, ones and zeros, literally ones and zeros. But after living in Soda Hall for a whole year, hibernating in that building, I was like, okay, I can't just sit in front of a monitor. I think I'm meant to, be in connection with people. So that wasn't a path for me. But so let me know if this analogy resonates or if it goes above your head. But what I come to realize is, in the 3D world, in this matrix we're in, it's like the programming language that people are in is old programming language, meaning Fortran or Python. And you can use that to build things, build software, build programs that can help you in your life. But as the programming language evolve to C++, to all these other things where it might be more efficient, a whole new world opens up if you're able to integrate that new language. And I feel that spiritual journey is very much like that, right? I think, offline we were talking about, if that programming language doesn't land on you, another way to say it is, let's say in your entire life, you've only understood addition and subtraction. And so if I were to ask you, well, how many people are 7 groups of 6? And if you only knew your whole world of addition and subtraction, then my process would be, okay, well, it's 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36, 42. So the answer is 42. Okay. What if I introduce this new thing called multiplication? What's 7 times 6? Oh, that's 42. Wait, what? That was fast. Mm-hmm. What? Right? And if you start understanding there's new language that could be more efficient, that's more in alignment, first of all, your body, your nervous system needs to catch up and integrate. There's a process of integration to that. But through that integration, through that process, oh my God, imagine now you have a world where multiplication division is possible. Then the different things will open up in your life. And you're going to be able to see more things. You'll be able to understand more things where it could be the same statement you saw for a whole decade, but something landed differently. And you're like, oh my God, that was the meaning. Moments like that starts opening up. And that's what I felt Boom Vision serves is, it's interesting. So far, all my clients came because they listened to it and something resonated and they prompted them to like reach out. Like I wasn't proactively like searching for it, but it gave me a sense. If the language resonates with you, it tells me, oh, you're ready for this work. Mm-hmm. Let's talk more. And just became very organic. Like I got in touch with old high school friends I haven't spoke to for 20 years. And all of a sudden I'm coaching them because they are ready for this work. And it's so beautiful to see how much transformation they've gone through night and day with the new language that now they've integrated to process and to co-create a reality that now they're realize, wow, I have the power to create that myself. It's not just responding to what the external world is throwing me at.
Holy no, I'm just saying like you are so gifted in that and you're stepping into it. Even I just want to let the audience know, Ben has been amazing in outside conversations, even through this podcast, but I'll present concepts and we'll talk deeper in spirituality. And Ben will actually give me another way of positioning it or a different language, so to speak, right? Because before you called my language like Java, Lisa, you could be like talking Java.
Yeah.
And you've taken all of that and articulated in ways that I'm like, yes, Ben, that's all it's exactly what I've been trying to say, but it's the way that you say it, it's understood by so many. Yeah. And so I just really wanted to say thank you so much for sharing that gift and really tapping into this space.
Thank you. And there's one thing also I want to just add, if it's okay, because one of the questions you also shared was like, what's 5D business? Like, what's the new version of business, right? And so I really marinated in that energy. And what came up to me, I'm not sure if it's a relevant analogy, but it gets the point across, is that disclaimer, I'm not condoning gambling, right? So I want to just put out that
we're going to have a disclaimer thing.
We're going to have a disclaimer here. Yeah. But this is an example that's tangible. Do you play blackjack? Do you ever play 21?
I have. I'm not really. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So here's why I'm using that as an example. In blackjack, and you don't have to gamble for money. It's just a game, right? But in blackjack, for the ones that don't know how to play that game well, if they're new to the game, they feel, oh, the object of the game is for me to get at least 21 without going over. I need to have high cards to win this game against the dealer. That's how they'll play that game.
Correct.
But the real players, the experts of blackjack, knows it's not about what I have. It's dealers have to hit until they have 17 or above. So the point of the game actually is, how do you get the dealer to bust? Not what I have individually as a hand. And so the right way to play it then is, because there's a lot of high cards, 10 cards in the deck. So you want to hit until you don't have to hit anymore without busting. But if the dealer's showing a 5 or 6, that's great. As long as you have 12 and above, you want to stay because the chances of them busting is high. So not only do you win, but everyone on the table wins with you. That's how you're actually increasing the probability of winning. Now, why I'm saying this as an example, Liza, is because in business, it's like, depending on the industry, it could be very cutthroat. And it's about like, me. It's about, right? Negotiating things. So it's like, wait, if you're not in alignment in creating a win-win, if you don't understand that money is energy, if you don't understand that the partners you have in the ship that you're on, if they're not in alignment in the same quadrant of the direction you're going towards, the employees you're attracting, the incentives you have in place, creating a win-win thing, there's a way to play this game where everyone wins. It's not But you have to have that belief. And when you do, and you surround yourself in an environment of people that also believe that, man, magic just starts happening.
It sure does.
It's a different game of playing the so-called game of blackjack. Mm-hmm. It's not about individuality. It's about winning as a table. Now, there's no right and wrong. People can play it whatever way they have. But when I observe people playing, and they're like, well, you know what? They're not playing the right way. I'll just choose to sit out, because chances are that I'm just going to be in a path where they're going to lose their money if they don't play the right way, right?
Yeah.
So again, I'm not condoning gambling, but I just wanted to share that business can be done in a very different way. Business can be done spiritually. You just have to have the right tools and framework and mindset to do so.
Beautiful, Ben. I'm telling you, we are moving into that space where we are just really scratching the surface of what 5D business can look like. The term, even 5D business, everyone's like, what are you guys talking about? I've been bringing up the term a lot since I launched the community platform. Because of course, for me, I had the vision from my higher self and guidance. And it was just telling me different concepts of how to, conduct business. So all of this is all going to be new, but you're absolutely right. Everything in that space is all about win-win. It's like going together, not even in just business, but as people, as a human race. Yeah. And so I really wanted to say it has been such an honor to sit in this space here with you in an hour, and the conversations that we have outside. What I wanted to say was, if there is any way that any of the audience members would like to get a hold of you, learn more about your work, how would they do so?
Thank you. Thank you for asking that, Liza. And thank you so much for creating this space for me to share my story, my message. There's several ways that your listeners can reach me. I have my website, which is simply my name. So it's www.benjaminyeh.com. spelled BenjaminYeh.com. I also have an Instagram handle, same thing, @BenjaminYeh. And my podcast is Boom Vision, which is available on all podcast directories. And there's one thing I also will love to impart as a giveaway for your listeners too, which is if they go to www.benjaminyeh.com/thank you. For your 8 billion listeners, I have free downloads for folks on a simple breathwork meditation, which is just 1 minute breathwork exercise, curated music list, because what I found helpful is having a morning ritual. Do you have time if I could just share quickly the process of those 4 steps?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
yeah.
So why these 4 steps of a morning ritual is powerful, Liza, is that it helps frame the intention of how you want to go about your day, but also helps you start practicing what exactly is it that you want to attract in your life, right? And it's just 4 simple steps. Okay, the first step is just calming yourself. Step 1 is just calming yourself, and that can come in different forms. Meditation doesn't have to be sitting cross-legged for an hour straight. Because if I sit cross-legged for even 30 minutes, I will be knocked out in the 7th minute. That just doesn't work for me, right? Everyone's way is different. It could be going out in nature, taking a walk. It could be jogging. It could just be doing something and just focusing on your breath. And so that's the 1 minute breath work where I just breathe in, breathe out for 1 minute. It can help you quiet your wind tunnel. That's step 1 is calming yourself. The second step, Lisa, is setting your intentions. Okay. And so the intention that a simple statement you can create for yourself is, my intention for achieving X is Y because it makes me feel Z. My intentions for achieving X is Y because it makes me feel Z. Now, why is this statement simple but also powerful? If you know why you're doing it, it gives you a sense of better purpose. If you know how it makes you feel, remember how it's like almost like punching the coordinates, right? Mm-hmm. and to your higher self, then you'll know what's the vibration and energy you want to feel for this to actually happen. Mm-hmm. And then the third step is knowing the energy you need to create that manifestation, listen to a song that vibrates in that frequency. Do you want more confidence? Do you want more higher energy? Do you need to feel more self-worthy, self-love? Whatever it is, the energy frequency you have that makes you feel Z, pick a song that makes you feel that way. So that then you're in that space, you're in that vibration, right? Auditory and metaphorically and physically. And then the fourth and final step, and this is the important part, Liza, the fourth and final step is making a declaration out loud. I am. I am powerful. I am worthy. I am love. Whatever word comes to you is saying it out loud. Why is I am so powerful, Liza? I am. I-A-M. I stands for intentions. A stands for actions. M stands for manifestation. What I put my intentions to, what I put actions to back up my intentions, I manifest. So by declaring it out loud, I am unstoppable. Whatever it is, whatever word you want to fill in the blank, by saying it out loud, that's the action you're backing up with your intentions. And it just takes 6 minutes.
That's amazing. I'm telling you, Ben, like the whole process that you have, it's like what I use too. And interestingly enough, in the more recent times, now that my son's out, like living outside of college and I have all this free space, I can do whatever I want. I talk out loud. I say everything that I need to say because that's what they're saying is like our words are so powerful right now.
Yeah.
Right?
100%. Yeah. And that's the giveaway too, is if you go to my website /thank you, is you can download that 1 minute breath work. You can, there's 3 curated playlists of high energy, of confidence, or self-love and worthiness. Whatever it resonates with you, I already have song picked out that are those frequencies that you can pick for yourself. So you can have this morning ritual for yourself to just reframe and, start the day off with a different vibration. You know what I mean? And so, if you just go there and sign up for the Boom Vision community, that's all free for you guys. So.
No, thank you so much. And we will actually put that in the show notes and in the description box of wherever any of our podcasts are. So look for that over there, audience. Ben, we always talk about this and we say this all the time. You and I could go hours and hours talking about so many different subjects. And I have this feeling that we are going to do other episodes together. Lovely. I feel like that's in the future for us. But in the meantime, I just wanted to say again, thank you truly from the bottom of my heart for actually coming on here, sharing a message with my audience, and really, moreover, to have the courage to actually step into the space and follow your heart's desires and your dreams.
Thank you, Liza. And thank you for having me. It's such a blast being here. But not only that too, it's just, what I wanted to share is continuing being that beacon of light for people. Like their life might be a bit foggy and they might not be able to see as clearly. And I think the work that you're doing, the vibration that you're emitting, is helping to clear that noise, that white noise, that fog for people. And so I commend really you for creating that space and to continue doing that. And whatever I can to help you in that journey, please let me know.
Thank you so much. I will actually probably take you up on that. So watch out, folks, because there's going to be a lot more.
Beautiful.
Well,
thank you.
Thank you so much, like really from the bottom of my heart. And I want to thank you, audience. Ben and I set an intention before we hit record. And so if you are here listening to this very part, know that you are part of that vibrational frequency that we've called out. So thank you. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I look forward to having you tune in to the next episode of 8 Billion Podcast. Thank you for listening to today's episode of the 8 Billion Podcast. If it's moved you in any way, please share your thoughts or give us a review on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube. To listen to more episodes, go to 8billionpodcast.com, or to learn more about our mission, go to 8billionproject.com.